Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and it's Brick Call O'Clock. And I'm really excited today because we've got something a little bit different. No, this isn't from bricklink.com, as usual. It's not from Lego Direct either, or Brick Owl, or even from a subscriber. No, this is a package of lovely third-party stuff, train stuff from TrixBrix. Now, I'm not usually into non-official Lego stuff, but for this, I think I'm going to have to make an exception. Now, as long-time viewers of the channel will know, basically I'm a bit of a Lego purist in that I only even like to use official Lego string on crane builds and so on. So I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to that. But when I looked at the TrixBrix website, I was basically quite enamoured with some of the interesting track pieces that they produce that allow you to have, well, first of all, a much more interesting track layout than using the very few pieces that Lego officially produces, but also a lot more efficient one, and that is very important to me given the limited space I've got in the new Lego room. Limited, yeah, well, relatively speaking. So I want to make best use of it effectively, and that is where this track is going to be worth its weight in gold. So if you don't know TrixBrix, they're mainly known for their bespoke Lego track, where they do a million different pieces for all sorts of different curve radiuses, all sorts of different points and switch setups, crossovers, and all the rest of it. It's absolutely staggering how many different ones they actually produce. It's really quite confusing. They even do narrow gauge railway, so the pieces are 6 studs wide and the distance between the actual tracks 4 studs wide. I'm thinking about using some of that for some mine setups as well. They also do ballast plates that I don't think I'll be using. All sorts of billboards, signs, patterned sort of floor and wall tiles and stuff like that, adverts. They've even got control and automation sort of setups as well, though there's quite a lot of competition of that on the internet, I believe. So yeah, basically so much stuff to go at. Now, it is quite dear. That is one of the problems with it. Quite expensive, very easy to spend a lot of money quite quickly. And that's where I sort of paused and hesitated. But I decided to be bold, given that I've got a fairly big YouTube channel now. So I approached them begging, essentially, giving little Robin a begging bowl, and sort of got in touch and said, you know, would you be interested in donating some parts to the channel? And I'll, you know, feature them, obviously, in my new city. And it worked. Fantastic. They gave me some store credit of a few €100 to spend. Now, this video isn't sponsored, because they haven't asked me to do or say anything. So they've literally not even started a conversation on that. They just said, yep, have some store credit, here you go. I mean, I guess that they're very confident in their product, and I will be 100% honest, as I always am. So basically, I've just got a really good donation to the channel, which is absolutely fantastic. It's going to make it much more interesting. So yeah, so I'm dying to get in here and tuck into all that Lego train goodness. So before I get really into it, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be looking for, basically. I mean, it's all along the lines of quality, I suppose. I mean, I'm assuming these parts are 3D printed. I don't even really know. And a lot of 3D printed stuff, you can sort of see the texture on, and sometimes it's a bit rough around the edges, not very smooth, a bit bobbly, and maybe has bits of sort of random plastic sort of coming off where it shouldn't and so on. So I'm going to be interested in the sort of general quality of the pieces. I'm also very interested in the match to existing Lego pieces. So I've got a trusty straight here to see if the colour is the same and the feel and look is the same. So that's going to be very interesting. Also, how it snaps together. We don't want it sort of falling apart in use, of course. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to look at. Another thing is actually the underside of the track, because, well, the anti-studs are needed to connect with the plates that I use for my ballast system, and even on the curves, this sort of recess here underneath the rails, though not fundamental, does help me attach it to jumper plates and so on, so it is attached more firmly and doesn't slide around and gives the train a bit more traction. So yeah, I'm looking for that as well. General strength. I mean, these are pretty rigid pieces, so I don't want it bending around. And then I suppose finally, just things on the switches, for example. Do they have a smooth action? Do they work well? So yeah, I'm going to be giving them the thorough once over for all of those qualities. But yeah, they've definitely got the look sorted. Have they got the functionality? Cool. Let's break. I'm going to get into this huge box. Excited! Okay, well the box is huge, so I've got it down here on the floor to my right, and I can decant it up here. And the first thing on top are some flyers. And this is the sort of stuff that is possible. There's bridges, raised sections. What else we got? Look at that. Double slip switch. I mean, that just looks crazy. Compact corner. Monster crossover. Can't even work out what's going on there. Triple switch. I mean, you can see that the possibilities are endless. And look, there's some automation to get the points being turned remotely. And yeah, some raised stuff as well. Looking amazing. And then there's another little flyer here. Oh, this is some of the tiles. We've got bathroom tiles, lettered tiles. Those are the billboards I was talking about, which are quite good fun, actually. They're a bit silly. I'm not sure if I like them. I kind of like making brick-built ones myself, but they're pretty cool. And then graffiti, street signs, railroad signs. So all sorts of stuff they make. That is pretty cool. I might check that out further. The website's huge. But I'm just dying to get into one of these packs. So here is the first one. And it is some regular curves. Well, I say regular curves, irregular curves really, because, well, the first thing you'll notice is they're a lot longer than a normal one. Now, I've got some normal curves over here just to compare them with, and that is the difference. Much, much longer. And they're actually, more importantly, a different radius. So if I get 4 of these, and 4 of these, then they'll start at the same place and kind of end at the same place when they go around a corner. Whereas if you were going to have one track outside the other with just regular track, you kind of have to start the turn later on to end up in the right place. So this means that I'll be able to have a very beautiful looking kind of parallel track system for an outer loop and an inner loop running side by side. And the other benefit I thought about for this is the fact that basically I'm going to continue to use my super mega long ridiculous cargo train on the outer line, and if it has to go around slightly less steep corners, then hopefully the forces between all the carriages and so on that cause it to decouple and have issues will be less, because, well, it's just doing it over a longer period, isn't it? Less sharp corners have got to be better. So what do I think? First impression, well, the colour, I mean, well, is it perfect? I mean, it's near perfect. I'm being very pernickety. I mean, yeah, I'm going to say that's perfect. I can't see any real difference. Let's see if we can connect them together to see what the difference is. Ooh, yeah, a bit rough. Oh, no, it's got a good click, though. I mean, can you see the difference in colour there? Obviously, you can see that it doesn't say Lego on it. I mean, it couldn't say Lego on it, could it? Because on the studs, that would be copyright. It's got the X for the TrixBrix logo. So, I mean, that's a colour match, isn't it? We're absolutely fine with that. And the click you heard, it was slightly harder to align. That might just be me, I don't know. But there's definitely a good click. And actually smoothness. That is smooth. There's no bubbles there. If this has been 3D printed, it's good. Very good. I don't think it has been. I think it must have been made in a similar way to how Lego make theirs, you know. Because it's just too smooth for 3D printing. Oh, wow. Look at the bottom. It's even got proper anti-studs there as opposed to this sort of mess on the official Lego one. That's the Lego one, believe it or not. This is the TrixBrix one. It's actually better than Lego's one. Well, there'll be much more connection points possible there. That is weird, isn't it? That's completely hollow, saving tiny bits of plastic, and this has got anti-studs on. Wow, so this would look better on raised track as well. I think they may even make radius 40. So normal Lego track is radius 40, meaning that the radius from the centre of the track to where the middle of the circle that it would go round on is 40 studs. And the next one out is 56, which is this, which means basically when you've got an 8 gap, it'd be sort of 40 to the middle point there, so 44 there, 8 for the gap, which would be, what, 52, and then 4 to the middle of this track, so that makes it 56. So, yeah, and then you can go all the way up to like 108 or something ridiculous, or even more than that, I forget. So you technically could have about 8 circles within each other. But I do think that TrixBrix also makes their own radius 40 track as well. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to check. But basically, if you did, it'll probably have the nice anti-studs under that as well, if that was of interest to you. So, wow. I think we've already answered half of our quality questions, actually. Does it look 3D printed? No. I don't think it even is 3D printed. Is it smooth? Yes. Does the colour match? Yes. Does it have a good snap? Yep, it certainly does. You can hear it. How's the underside? Better than Lego. What else was the strength? It's a little bit more twisty, I would say. That might be just because... No, I'm not sure it is, actually. I think that's just because it's a curve and it's a little bit longer. I don't think it is. Yeah, I should have got a tile, really, to hand to see if I could check the connectivity. Just looking to my... I've got that little arcade game. Let's see if I can just attach a tile to that. I mean, that's got a really good connection, hasn't it? Comes off. That feels like Lego to me. Absolutely no problem. Yeah? Wow. So that looks really good. I think it's already passed all of our tests. So, yeah, I've got enough here. I should have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that means I can do most of a complete circle for a huge, huge cargo loop. Now, the reason why I haven't got 16, because the brightest among you will have worked out that I would need 16 for a quick complete loop, is because I'm also going to incorporate some brand new radius 56 switches, which are going to be continuous curve switch. So basically the train can continue around the corner and look like it could have an option of going straight off into a wall and into another city like Brick Derby. Grrr. Everyone hates Brick Derby. So hopefully we'll see that in our rest of our box. Now that's just a tiny bit of excess plastic there, just come off there. Do you see it was like a human hair? It was actually attached, but it's come off absolutely no problem. Oh yeah, you see a tiny bit on there? Can you see that? I mean, that's nothing, is it? You just rub that and it's come off. That's a tiny bit of the moulding process that you wouldn't find on Lego. But I mean, there's no sort of attachment point where that was. No, so I don't think that's a problem at all. But that was something I was looking for. So that's interesting to see. Oh, there's a tiny sort of, what would you call that? Sort of sprue mark on the inside. Do you see that? I mean, it's smooth. I can't, really feel that with my thumb. I mean, it does notice on the look just a tiny bit. But I mean, God, if we're getting into that sort of level of pedantry, then arguably we're going too far. But that's obviously where it's moulded. Oh, look, there's another tiny sort of wisp of a kind of hair of plastic, if you can see that. It's so thin you barely can, but I think one taking out of the packet will lose all of that sort of detail. Oh, that's avalanched over there. Right, okay, next bag. So this one says 0 gap L. So this is probably the most important part. This is the one that arguably encouraged me to, well, beg for some credit, basically, because I thought this would be incredibly useful. Now this is slightly different material. In fact, this is very different material. This is 3D printed. So you see we've got a pressed part there, very interesting, and then 2 parts here that are 3D printed. So I'm going to come on to the quality of the 3D printedness of it in a minute. It is snapping together well, but it does look a bit different now. But that is still quite interesting. I'm going to tell you first of all why I wanted this. So what it's called is a 0 gap switch. And in this case, left, because that bit's going off on the left-hand side. We'll see a right one in a minute. And the importance for that is because it's very compact, meaning that the gap between this track when it's finished doing the turn and this one is 0. So they're bang next to each other. Now, if we compare that to a normal switch, which I managed to hook out from my collection, it's great big huge space, isn't it? We've basically got an 8 stud gap in between the 2 tracks when it's finished, and it also gets finished a lot quicker. You see, if we compare that to that, it's finished all of its turny shenanigans a whole 16 studs ahead of the official Lego one. Now the reason why I want this is because one of the main criticisms of my train setup is that I can only have currently 2 trains out at once, one on the inner loop and one on the outer loop. Now in the new city, I'm going to have more than 2 loops. Basically, I'm going to have bigger loops and I'm going to have 3 of them. But I want to be able to have more trains going round well, without having to take off a whole train and replace it with another. So have more trains sort of in the station at one time. So if I have, instead of a single track going through the station and another single track, so basically 2 loops, I can have these switches on both of them, meaning I've got kind of 4 tracks going through my station. So I can have 2 with parked up trains and then have 2 with active trains going through, and then the cargo line won't go through the station at all. So I could have 5 trains out and 3 of them moving at any one time. So I think that'll be absolutely amazing. And these make it all the more possible because if I did it with conventional Lego pieces, essentially I'd have a platform, then a track, then a gap, then a track, a platform, a track, then a gap, then a track, then a platform. And the whole thing would be about 3 base plates wide just to get all that track in. Whereas if I do it like this, I'm removing that 8 stud gap from here and I'm removing the 8 stud gap from the other one as well, meaning I'll save 16 studs or half a base plate, and I think that'll make it a lot better. So that is why I'm going to have 2 pairs of these. Now, as for the actual piece, you can see immediately that it's more dull and not as shiny plastic. So I think these are done using the normal sort of molded way, and this is 3D printed. So yeah, it's less shiny on appearance and you can see the difference, but then again, you know, that's the shiny stuff and that's not. So you can see it when it's side by side and catching the light, but dead on when the light isn't catching it, not so much. But there is a color difference. Yeah, it is a slightly lighter, sort of more chalky grey, isn't it? Okay, so another thing was the action on the points, and there it is. Yeah, it works, and we don't need one of those great big yellow kind of plastic levers that you'd have on an official Lego one. It's all sort of integrated. I mean, it's a very smooth motion. If anything, I'd be more nervous of it getting too loose. If anything, it's perfectly fine as is, and it must have to move a little bit to let the train go the other way, and does. So, yeah, I really like that. Yeah, let's check the studs on this using my trusty yellow tile, and yeah, that works fine. Yeah, good click there. Yeah, good click there. So I think the studs are working fine. This doesn't seem to have the TrixBrix sort of logo on the studs. They just seem to be rounded, or if they've got something else on, it's really quite hard to see. But, you know, they'll all be covered up with brown tiles. So this is the biggest difference. I don't think that is going to fit an anti-stud. Oh, now I need to get some more, cannibalize some more parts off here. I really should have got some parts to hand, shouldn't I? To see if this can take some anti-studs. Oh, it can. Yeah. No, there's a good connection there. Yeah. So it's not going to be in the regular setup for these diagonal ones. They're going to be at weird angles, but they always were, I suppose. Yeah. It holds all of that absolutely fine. So there's a... Oh, that one doesn't. So that's a bit too loose. That's a bit too loose. But then if we did the same thing with official Lego track, would it always work? No, it doesn't work at all on Lego track. So that is not worse by any means. So if Lego track can't hold on to it, and this can in most of the places, it's arguably better, isn't it? Wow. So yeah, a good snap connection. Yep, you heard that. Oh, that came apart. Was that my fault? Yeah, wow. I think it's a really good piece. So yeah, there is a slight difference in there. It doesn't feel too chalky. It's not bobbly. It is very smooth. It's not got the sort of, you know, the texture of 3D printing that you kind of think of when you sort of see under there. It's obviously a very high quality one. Very smooth indeed, actually. Got lots of studs here, more than an unofficial Lego piece again. I mean, you look at this, they sort of give up doing all the studs in these bits. So you can't put any sleeper pieces on there, whereas these have put a bobble on or a stud on absolutely everywhere where they could do. So yeah, that'll maximize the look of it. So wow, so far so good. I'm going to delve deeper into my box and see what else lies within. Okay, so we've got a second 0 gap left switch, and we've got 2 0 gap right switches as well. So that'll just turn those 2 loops into 4 tracks when it goes into the station, and then it can sort of start off again. So that will be kind of connected to that, but with lots of straights in between. God, this is going to be tricky lining all 4 of those up at once. Yep, yeah, good click, good click. Yep, that looks, look, I can support the weight of it on just that, which is probably better than Lego track. So yeah, that's how it's going to be. And already we've got some really interesting new shapes for our track, haven't we? Which is definitely a very good thing. Yeah, there's only so much you can do with a sort of, what, four different pieces that Lego give you? Not very much at all. So yeah, they're great. Let's delve into the next bag down here. And this is a right switch radius 56. So this is what I was talking about with those curved pieces. This is the bit that is going to sort of pull off one of those corners and go into the distance. And I believe they make all these parts small and separate, so you can do different combinations of them to do all sorts of weird stuff, because this might be used in two different setups. I mean, you saw in that little brochure all the really weird setups you can do. So essentially, different combinations of different pieces do different directions. So what do we got? We've got that for the out curve, have we? I think we've got all sorts of different alternate sort of out curve pieces for whatever sort of function you want to use it on. And look, there's a half straight. That'll be really useful as well. Instead of using flex track wherever I've got a 4 or an 8 gap. I think they do everything from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 to a, no, maybe not a 3, a 1 to 2, a 4, an 8 length straight piece as well. So yeah, all sorts of stuff to keep your track looking really good. I really like that. God, I could have done with that in the old city. So essentially this is continuing this curve. So if I get 2 of these on top of it, it should be the same sort of shape, like that, and that goes on there. Oh yes, you can see it is. So that basically replaces 2 of the curves that I needed. So I've got 12 of the normal curves. This will count as 13, 14, and the other one that I've got still in the box will be 15, 16. So that'll be enough for a complete circle, and it just means that that curve can continue around. So it'll be like that. And also have a track going off straight into the wall, as I said, and that will suggest that the cargo train could go off to another city to drop off the atomic waste at Brick Derby and pick up something nice from anywhere else. So there we go. That looks really good. So again, this is a lot more sort of compact, which means I can get all these train features into a much smaller space, because if we wanted to do this with a conventional train piece, we'd have to pretty much go straight and then start the corner, and it just takes up far too much real estate. So that is very nice. So all of this is 3D printed, it seems. Same quality again, feels really smooth. A little bit of a chalkier feel than the really, really shiny kind of hard plastic of this, as you can probably imagine. I mean, I don't mean chalky in that you can feel any chalk. It just kind of feels a bit softer, I suppose. But it isn't softer. It doesn't bend or anything. Yeah, very interesting indeed. And then the half track is pressed, and then these 2 alternate. Are they just? I think they're slightly different lengths. Are they? Oh no, it's just the same. Oh, so I've got loads of half curves as well. So yeah, if that were needed, I might have bought too much of the regular ones then. But yeah, that's really good. So there we go. I'm getting mixed up. What's old and what's new? That's old. No, hold on. That's in that pile, isn't it? It's all becoming a bit of a mess. Right. Loads of lovely, lovely dark grey goodness. So this should be the exact same thing, but the other way. Yes. So let's push that together. There we go. And that's got the, oh yep, the closable bit. Yeah, nice action there. I thought it was broken, but it's not at all. And that will let the chain go the other way. Yep, no problem there. So we've got a pair of those. Very, very nice indeed. So that'll just make our setup a lot more interesting. All the extra bits with that. And then, we come on to 2 big bags. These are the same, so a bit less interest there, but they are the pièce de résistance, because they are great big T-junction pieces, radius 40 and radius 56. So essentially, I've got the 4 lines in the station, and then they go through those 0 gap switches to become 2 wide coming out of the station, and then they meet basically a 2 wide loop on the outside, the outer which one is the cargo line and the inner one is the passenger line, and then basically those 2 tracks meet these 2 tracks from each direction, and basically it means that every line can get to every other line essentially. I think that's the only way of describing that. So I might have to pause this just to put all these pieces together because there's quite a few, isn't there? I'm going to clear some space. Wow, this is the contents of just one of those tipped out bags. It looks like the most complicated jigsaw puzzle you've ever seen, doesn't it? Right, I may need a minute to piece all of this together, but yeah, it does justify its price tag, I think. There's a lot of stuff here. This thing is massive. It's even bigger than I thought. I had the dimensions, but I mean, wow, this is just crazy. I've got my camera teetering on the edge of my desk. I'm just going to lift up to give you the full perspective. There we go. So it's a proper T-junction where two tracks can go left or right. Or if you're on the outer loop already, you can keep on it or you can pull in as well. Absolutely crazy. And it was incredibly complicated to build as well. All these pieces look quite similar, but they're pretty much unique. It is symmetrical, so once you've got one side right, you can pretty much work it out from the other. But yeah, I did need to go back to the TrixBrix website where they've kind of got an exploded diagram where you can see where each part goes. But wow, this is going to look great in my city. Now, this isn't as condensed as some of the other stuff. The other stuff's sort of saving space. This is a great big sprawl of track, but it's going to look amazing, isn't it? Imagine when I've got all this sort of sleepers on here and so on. It's going to look really good. And the gravel all around and then bits of green in between, maybe with signals on and all sorts of other good train stuff. Accoutrement all around the outside. I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'll have two of these, one sort of coming out of the station, like we're just driving out of the station, and another one sort of come into the station on the other side. And the station will be right middle of the room. So it's in pride of place and can be seen from every single side. Oh, so I was right to pause this, definitely to put this together. Far too complicated just to do from sight. Right, so we drive on the left in the UK, but it works either way around. So essentially, if you were already driving on the left coming out of the station here, you'd have the option of going left and being on the left-hand side of the track still, or right and going right across both tracks to still be driving on the left, going that way. And also, if you were coming in from the left, you could either go straight on and continue on your way, or you could pull in and be on the left, but going down as we're looking at it. And if you're on that way, coming in from the left, you could either go straight on or come in and go down. So yeah, it works every single way and keeps you on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the track that you should be on. So yeah, this is absolutely great. So reaching down, the great news is I've got two of these. As I said, for either side of the station, which means I've got another fun building journey ahead of me. I've also got to work out how to connect this to the kind of rest of my city on the underside, because we've got lots of anti-studs under there. But basically, yeah, they're all the 3D printed ones, and they're all going to be in absolutely crazy positions. It might be strong enough not to need connecting in too many places. Just miss rubbing there. But yeah, I'm going to also have to work out what tiles I can fit on where. So I've got as much brown on top of this track as possible. And then hopefully the small difference between this sort of 3D printed type stuff and the more shiny kind of press printed, as I think of it, way will not be very apparent when all those flat surfaces are covered up. But it looks great. And, you know, it doesn't really matter because the variety this provides in a city for train functionality is just so million miles ahead of what you could do with normal Lego pieces that I think, you know, it's worth it looking slightly different, even if it does, which I'm not sure it will by the end of things. So yeah, it's well worth the risk. So yeah, I think this has been a good experiment with third-party non-official Lego stuff. I'm dying to get it in the city. I think the next thing to do, which I'll probably do as my next video in the new Lego room, is kind of put all this together, probably on the floor, because I'm not going to have all the tables out. In fact, it'd be a good time to do it, wouldn't it, before we get all sort of half the tables in, and we'll not be able to do this setup for a long time if we wait. So if I do it now before there's any tables in, I can get this on the floor, get the other one built, that on the floor, all the zero gap switches and so on, and do a sort of maybe slightly smaller mock-up of the future train setup. I won't be able to get the full size probably because obviously half of my track's still in the old city. But yeah, this will show all that functionality and look absolutely great. Make my city even more packed and stacked. I mean, you just look at this and it is absolutely crazy busy, isn't it? Just in such a good way. I don't know too much about trains, but it looks very realistic to me. So what is the conclusion? Well, we wanted to know if this was 3D printed and was smooth. Well, some of it is very, very smooth, given that it's been press printed. The 3D printed stuff is less smooth, but smooth enough, most certainly. The real proof of the pudding will become when we put trains on it to see if it makes any funny bumps and noises when it goes from one to the other. But I think it's passed the initial sort of field test. The functionality is great on all these points because all these points move, you know. We've got a point here, here, here and here, here and here, so you can get every combination of trains whizzing every which way using these switches. So that's really good. The underside, I think, is more impressive than I expected. On the pressed parts, it's better than Lego. On the printed parts, it is at least as good as Lego. It doesn't look as nice, but I mean, you're really not going to be staring at that for too long anyway. So yeah, I think it's definitely passed there. The color match on the pressed pieces is identical. On the printed pieces is slightly duller, if we're honest about it. Not a perfect match, but definitely good enough. So I think, given the match and the functionality, it's worth a 4 out of 5. But I think given that we've got pieces like this, which move along, nothing to see here. Yes, I did knock my camera off the desk. It is teetering right on the very edge because of this huge piece. But anyway, I thought I'd keep that blooper in because it's probably quite funny. Anyway, where was I? Yes, so for the normal sort of colour match, clippability and all the rest of this stuff, the feel of it, I think I'll give it 4 out of 5 because of that slight change in colour for the 3D printed parts. But I think with great big wonderful parts like this, when all combined, I mean, just look at it. It looks absolutely majestic. I've got to give it a bonus point, haven't I? And give it a 5 out of 5. I'm really chuffed with this. So that is my first view. I think the final score will be given by the trains themselves running over this in probably the next video we do, let's face it, because this is too exciting. So yeah, preliminary mark of 5 out of 5. We'll see if it stands the actual test. So I think it's well worth a bedoing to TrixBrix for doing some pretty amazing stuff, to be fair. I'm very impressed indeed. And given that I didn't pay anything for this batch, I'm super happy. Yeah, I'm very happy with this. I'm very much looking forward to putting all of these in together to test how much straight I need in the middle of this section so all of my trains can go past each other in the station. So we can have basically the fast white train, the Eurostar type train, the Lime Python and my great big steam train all side by side at the same time in the main station, with 2 of them whizzing around different loops at the same time as well. That'll be absolutely great. And then you can just stop one and start off the other, all with just changing the channel on the controller or even just using the other dials. So we'll have to work out how best to use all of that. It'll be very turn off and onable. I like it a great deal. Yeah, we've had a really successful package here. I think for the future, you know, I could get even more, but I ran out of store credit, essentially. I've got ideas for doing connections up with things like the new, or rather old train engine shed from the Bricklink Designer Series 1 to, you know, link up and incorporate and so on. I've also got ideas, as I mentioned briefly earlier, to use some narrow gauge track for my mine setup. And you know, they've even got pieces where the narrow gauge kind of joins up with the wide gauge normal track and kind of becomes a blended track where they share one and you've got a third sort of track in the middle there. So yeah, my mine carts could basically use the conventional track and then pull off on the narrow gauge to go into the mine. So that's really interesting indeed. I mean, I didn't even have space in Brick Nottingham 1.0 for the mine, and now not only will it fit in, but we can do it properly in spades. And do you know what? I might need even more of these pieces for the subway, because what I'm doing with that is I'm going to have a loop at each end. So it basically goes from A to B, does kind of a loop, and then goes back B to A and does a loop, rather than needing a complete loop to do a lap and always be going the same direction, kind of like that. It'll be basically turning around at one end, pinging along, turning around at the other end, and pinging along a single track for the main body of it. So yeah, using these pieces might mean that I can do a much tighter turn. I don't know if that's going to be an issue yet, but yeah, I'm already teeing up my second TrixBrix order, I must say. So yeah, must be good. Cool. So as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe. And do look out for the use of these pieces on the regular Robin Hood Bricks channel, of course. I can't wait. And if you value these channels, there are many ways in which you can support them. Do check out the links in the description below. And if you want to send something to a future brick call, you can, to the usual PO Box address. I've literally, in the middle of filming this piece, had a second PO Box parcel arrive from the States. So I've got two lined up. So if you sent one, they've both made it. So we'll be doing those next time, I think. Yeah, I've wittered far too much today. But I'm really looking forward to doing that next week and getting on with this in between. So yeah, brilliant. So until all of that, see you. Yeah, that T-junction is spectacular.